All right, taking a look at the stock market right now, all three indices are in the green. There was a slight rally today so far after ending in the red last week. Dow Jones right now is up almost 100 points. I want to bring in Philip Braun. He is a clinical professor of finance at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Philip, thank you so much for your time today.
Happy to be here.
So, Philip, top executives have been saying that we are headed for a recession. Last week, we heard the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, saying that we are headed for an economic hurricane. An economic hurricane. President Biden, though, he says that the economy is in a robust recovery. So what is your take on all of this? Who is right? Who is wrong?
The economy right now is in a good position, but where we're going is a different story. It's quite possible that across the next year we will have a recession, like Jamie Dimon mentioned. It's all a function, of course, of what's going to happen with inflation and the actions of the Federal Reserve.
So the Fed is likely to keep those interest rates rising, right? I think we just saw a 50 basis point hike the last time the Fed got together. We might see another 50 basis point for the next meeting. So can the Fed's policy really help the economy? Is this going to make things worse? There are people out there, analysts, who are saying that they acted too slow when it came to raising rates.
Yeah, that's right. I think the inflation rate today is over 8%. It's quite high. The Federal Reserve is very slow in acting to try to bring it down, and now their task is that much more difficult. So the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, as you mentioned. They're also reducing the money supply. Both of these actions will slowly bring inflation down, but not in the near term. But then they also have the negative consequence that they could have slow economic growth and hurt the employment market.
That's right. So when it comes to inflation, what can we point to as being the issue at hand? I mean, we saw a lot of liquidity in the market at the beginning of the pandemic. Explain to us what quantitative easing is and whether or not quantitative easing was to blame here.
To a large extent, that's my opinion, but not everyone agrees with me. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Federal Reserve pushed a lot of liquidity into the market, as you just mentioned, and this liquidity then it was a lot and expanded the money supply very dramatically. Expanded the money supply to such an extent that we've never seen it before in the United States. This ultimately led to the inflation we see today, coupled, of course, with the supply chain disruptions. So today, the Federal Reserve is trying to reverse its policy by reducing the money supply and, again, increasing interest rates. Both of these, of course, are going to hurt the economy. So the question is how much is the Federal Reserve going to increase interest rates? And the more they increase them, the more they're going to hurt the economy. My perspective is the Federal Reserve is going to have to increase interest rates quite dramatically to bring inflation down. And so my opinion is that the economy will head into a recession because of the Federal Reserve's actions.
So do we say at this point, Philip, that the Fed here has failed? I mean, is there any way to participate in the reverse of quantitative easing, which is quantitative tightening, without heading towards recession, rather? You know, we think back to history and we look at the 70s and what Paul Volcker did during that time. Is that what we should be expecting? How high will inflation get?
You're correct. We have to look back to the 70s and early 80s. And throughout the 70s, early 80s, interest rates had to rise above the rate of inflation at that point in time. So at one point in the 1970s, inflation was around 14%, and they had increased interest rates up to 16%. So my expectation is that might occur again today, which means the Federal Reserve might have to increase interest rates above 8%. So quite considerable.
And, you know, big tech. I've been watching tech announcing layoffs. We saw Tesla announce layoffs, Netflix, Microsoft even. Does that tell you anything? I mean, does that tell you anything about where the economy could be headed next?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing weaknesses around here and there in the labor markets and other places, but it's only showing up in the economy today. And so my expectation is the labor market will worsen across time, just like you said, with the tech companies laying off, and slowly the economy will move into a recession.
So whose fault is this at the end of the day? We know that the Fed is responsible for monetary policy. Is there anything more that the president can be doing? Is there anything more that Congress can be doing?
Unfortunately not. Fighting inflation is usually the task of the Federal Reserve. There's very little the White House or Congress can do to combat inflation. Biden today announced he's going to roll back some of the Chinese tariffs, but that's not going to have a significant impact to bring inflation down. Major impacts today include the war in Ukraine. Oil prices are up almost 80% since Russia started amassing its force on the border of Ukraine. Wheat prices are up 40%. These are completely out of the control of the president.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the war in Ukraine, for example. There are a lot of different factors that are on the table at this point. I want to go and ask this question because I don't know that a lot of people do, but former Labor Secretary Robert Reich has been saying that the rise in inflation has everything to do with corporate America. And I guess it was last year that corporate America had record profits, I think 35%. Do you think corporate America has anything to do with the rise in inflation?
It's hard to say, but I suspect not. It's a discussion point that's come out recently. It seems that producers, manufacturers in the U.S. are passing on price increases that they're facing. Food prices, for example, in terms of chicken, for example, they're not only faced with increased costs of feed, but they're also being faced with bird flu. So I don't think that corporate America is really trying to take advantage of the situation. So I would disagree with him.
So, Philip, I got to let you go, but what can Americans be doing right now to prepare for this?
Budget very carefully, expect a recession, and be conservative in your expenditures.
All right. Philip Braun, clinical professor of finance at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Philip, thank you so much for your expertise into the issue. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.